Welcome to Unscripted with Russo. I'm your host, Ashley Russo, president and executive producer of The Peak TV. For our podcast, we decided to explore the people behind the narratives. I'll introduce decision makers and influencers who are winners in their field and find out the intimate story behind their rise to success. Hey everybody, thanks for being here. I have an amazing guest with me today. I have Marci Ronald-Lesko, and she is with the United Way of the Greater Lehigh Valley, and a very good friend and colleague, and someone that I've just come to respect and know over the years, and it's just amazing to have you here. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
I have to tell you already, I'm a little upset because you look very beautiful and fancy today, and there are some things people don't know about you, such as being a chicken farmer.
Right.
And I wore my plaid chicken farmer outfit for you, and most people know I don't really dress down that often. We're like, what's happening here?
We didn't coordinate. I'm sorry.
We did not. All right, that's okay. I feel good. I feel ready to learn a little bit more about your background.
You don't want
and
to see the chicken farmer
farming
outfit.
I mean, how many eggs just today?
I brought 14 dozen in today.
Whoa.
Yeah.
14 dozen eggs. That's an astounding amount of eggs. That's just, I can't. It's so many.
34 chickens. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I remember when you got those three little babies, whatever it was. What happened? They started multiplying.
It's chicken math. You get one and then you have 40.
So Marci, people know you from United Way here.
Yeah.
But I'd love to get to know more about your background. Tell me a little bit about where you grew up and sort of your family structure. Siblings, where are you in that mix, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so I grew up in Ohio. I'm from a very small town in Ohio. It's a village, actually, and I always sort of joke that the village, the parade goes around twice in my hometown. It's sort of a little tiny village, but it's got a couple famous sports figures from there. Cy Young and Woody Hayes are from my hometown.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Nice little claim to fame.
Mm-hmm. And my high school graduating class was 66 people. So.
And that's the public high school.
Yeah, public high school.
Is it very rural, farms?
It was.
Okay.
Yep. So grew up there, and I'm the oldest of four, and I'm the oldest of 100 grandchildren. Some people know that, some people don't know that on one side. Wow. So we have an enormous family.
100 grandchildren. It's like just an incredible.
Yeah, and 30 on the other side. So there's like.
Your family's big. Like reunions are a massive.
They're usually held at a hall. Yeah. So.
And where are I mean, there's only 66 people in your graduating class. Where are all of these? Where are all of
the
these
rest
people?
of the town? Yeah. So I have a big family, and so I grew up in Ohio and have hopscotched a little bit around the Midwest, and then ended up here in PA in 2003.
Wow.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
And now tell me a little bit about what you were like as a kid. Are you the typical oldest child?
The responsible one, the one to set an example. Yes, I can see that's why we bond over that. I was a tomboy. I was kind of a country girl, so running the fields barefoot, playing with the boys in the neighborhood and on the farm, climbing trees, wrestling snakes, that sort of thing.
Adventurous.
And so I sort of feel like that's what's happened in my life in the last few years.
Sort of
is kind of returning to my
mm-hmm.
roots. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Did you do any activities, sports, music? What was your thing?
Band.
Okay.
Yeah, I played the trombone for 9 years.
Wow.
And,
I didn't know that about you.
Jazz, pep.
Did that start with school or did that start at home?
It started with school in 5th grade, and so I played all the way through college. And I played a little basketball in high school and middle school. Not much. I was not very good, but I enjoyed playing.
Like the team spirit.
It was great.
Thing,
team spirit. I was better at band. So.
What was your high school mascot?
A Trojan.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So.
Colors?
Orange and black.
All right. That's good.
Yep. So. Yeah. So I was president of my class. Graduating, in high school, I was. Miss Goody Two Shoes. I always was the one who followed all the rules. I did everything right. I was,
Good student.
Good student. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
All right. Interesting. Did you know right away what you wanted to do? I mean, when you were in high school, were you driven and like, okay, this is the path? And then if so, what was it?
Yeah. So, you want me to be funny or serious?
Oh, either way.
Yeah. So
you're usually pretty funny.
I always, I had a fervent dream of being a solid gold dancer, and I cannot dance at all. But that was like my thing, the gold lame outfits, the whole deal.
Do you want Shelley Brown to hear this from the State Theater, Dancing with the Lehigh Valley Stars? I mean,
Shelley, no. That's not,
Not an option?
No.
But you kind of liked that whole scene?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was, growing up. And then I always thought I wanted to be a teacher. And so I started on that track. I was going to go be a teacher, and then discovered I didn't really want to be in a classroom, and ended up doing community education. And so that's kind of how I fell in love with working in the community and doing things, educating people about important social issues.
Yeah, and now really driving a lot of what is hopefully influencing education, but we'll get back to that.
Yeah.
All right, so what was your first job?
I worked at a place called Dave's Place, and it was an ice cream stand. And I was like a dairy
tables?
store. No, there were a few picnic tables out there. There was a drive-through.
Okay.
I learned how to perfect the twist.
Love it.
And milkshakes and malts and flurries and all that sort of stuff. So I worked at Dave's Place, and it was until I moved out of the Midwest that I discovered that ice cream didn't always have eyes. We had little candy eyes that we put on every scoop of ice cream. So they would say, you want with eyes or without eyes? And so I moved out of the Midwest.
Oh my gosh,
I
never heard that.
Why are there eyes on my ice cream?
I thought you were going to tell me like Jimmy's Sprinkles.
No.
People learn that they call them Jimmy's, but they call them Sprinkles in other places. I had never heard of ice cream coming with eyes.
Yeah, not us. Yeah.
No.
So we like everything watching it.
Is the place still open?
It is. It's called something else now, but I worked there.
Do they still put eyes on the ice cream?
They do.
That is unbelievable.
Yeah, I'll take a picture next time.
You taking your kids?
Yes, I have. They have a signature flavor of blue sherbet, and I've never seen it anywhere else.
I don't think I've ever had blue sherbet, but I love sherbet. It was the thing my grandmother ate.
Yeah.
And it was a thing she offered us after
like the
meals.
Rainbow kind,
totally.
or the orange.
Yep, always rainbow or orange, pretty much.
Right.
And I think to this day I like lime and orange ice pops or flavored things much more than the average person.
Right.
And I'm convinced it's because of my grandmother and the
grandma.
sherbet.
Yeah, of course.
I love that. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. So you worked there, and then what happened? I mean, was that during high school? Were you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I started. I was babysitting at 13, and then 16, I got my first job. I was really a very independent person most of my life. So 16, got my first job, and then eventually graduated high school, was working a couple of other places. I worked in a deli frying chicken and slicing bologna, and worked at a Serbian chicken restaurant as a waitress, and put myself through school. And so I went to Kent State University in Ohio, and which was a complete and total culture shock for me.
I would imagine coming from such a tiny school, tiny town. I mean, in your town, everybody kind of knows each other,
Everyone,
right? Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm imagining, though, even though you were a goody two-shoes, there had to have been the kids, everybody knew what the bad kids were up to, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you didn't get away with much. Did you have a movie theater?
No.
Okay.
30 minutes. I think I was 5 when I saw my first movie, but it was like a really big deal. And then I didn't see another movie in the theater until I was in high school, almost graduated.
Do you remember what that first movie was?
On Golden Pond.
Really?
Yeah.
In the theater?
Yeah. We went as a whole family. Like I just remember, I just remember going.
So we're contemporaries.
Yeah.
Age-wise.
Yes.
What were some of your favorite sort of pop culture things in high school? Were you into any TV shows or books, or did you have a style? We were in a weird time because it was kind of like the 80s were lingering, but it was really the 90s, and then we were getting introduced to grunge, and nobody knew what to do with that. And
sure. Yeah, I was like a Debbie Gibson, Tiffany, Vanilla Ice.
Yes.
I'm kind of old school
Who wasn't
hip-hop.
really?
Yeah, I'm kind of, Beastie Boys, like that kind of genre.
You didn't jump onto the New Kids on the Block?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
You couldn't miss it.
So yeah, NKOTB, Boys to Men, all of that.
Yeah. Did you have posters on your wall?
Of course.
Did you have posters on your wall? Okay.
Yeah. Scott Baio and that's.
Did you have your own room, or did you share a room?
Shared a room with my sister.
Okay.
Yeah.
And she's next in line, or no?
She's next in line, 18 months younger. Yeah.
And how'd that work out? Give me the highlights on that. I share a room with a sister too.
Yeah. There's actually a really funny family story about this, that she was afraid of the dark, and she's going to kill me if she listens to this, but she's really afraid of the dark. And one night I tied together a bunch of belts and ropes and said, okay, you lay in your bed, I lay in my bed, you pull on the rope if you feel like you need to know that I'm there. And she held onto her rope fervently, and I tied mine to the bedpost and went to bed. So, so I was.
That's funny.
I have paid for that a few times,
I
but
bet.
My sister and I fought a lot when we were growing up, but we played a lot of board games and stuff, and now she's my best friend.
Isn't that the best? I have the same situation with my sister. We were super, super close when we were little, and then I like to say that when she developed her own sense of self and her own mind, and I couldn't control her with my mind games anymore, she all of a sudden revolted.
Yes.
Didn't like me. I don't understand. And I'm like, just do what I say. It's so easy. And now we are best of friends and so close. But those are good childhood memories. It's kind of fun to share a room. I have a boy and a girl, so they've never shared a room. And I always feel a little sad that they don't have that. They don't know, of course, any different, but
like the sibling rivalries where like you had to divide up the room, right?
Oh yeah, the line. And
like,
whole, like you don't step over this,
what do you mean
come on my
I don't
side.
get the side with the door?
Right.
Like, like I can't get out.
Absolutely.
And so you have to ask for permission to get out the door, you know.
Oh yeah, great.
There's lots of that.
I love that.
It's great stuff.
And what about what are siblings 3 and 4?
They're from a second marriage.
Okay.
Another
thing we have in common.
Yeah, my biological father remarried and had a couple more kids. My oldest, my brother, the only brother of the 4 of us, is a sergeant in the Army. He's an Army vet. He was a 4-time deployed to Afghanistan and Iraq, combat specialist, and eventually became a sergeant. And has pretty extensive experience of being deployed. And my youngest sister is a phlebotomist and is married and has 2 beautiful little girls. So, yeah.
It's really nice.
Yeah, it is.
It's great.
Yep.
It's fun when your family, I always say to people, it's tough when you go through a divorce, and it's tough when you go through those things, but at the same time, I kind of can't imagine my life without all the other people that came into it because of that.
Oh, sure.
And so, I don't know, it enriches your life in a lot of ways.
I think it's given me the opportunity to always just be inclusive, always sort of have a big tent philosophy. Everybody's welcome, everybody's part.
Me too.
Yeah.
In fact, I have a harder time cooking and day-to-day for just the 4 of us.
Right.
That's really challenging for me. Like if you need me to make a meal for 15, I'm great, I'm good.
I love that. Yes, same.
But then I'm like, I don't know.
I'm in my element when I get to take care of a lot of people.
But I bought 12 chicken breasts. I don't understand. Yeah, that's funny. So we were at Kent State. I digressed for a minute, but you go to this school.
Yeah.
What is that first semester like? It's daunting enough for most kids, but you did come from a fairly small environment.
Yeah.
Tell me about that beginning semester.
Total culture shock.
Were you living there?
I did.
It was far enough away.
I lived on campus. My roommate was from Atlanta, Georgia. Her parents owned a chain of restaurants. She was in a totally different income bracket than me.
She came from a very different upbringing.
Totally different background, totally different upbringing.
What kind of things from that experience did you learn about the world you didn't know existed in the world?
Man, that the world was so much bigger than I thought. Yeah. And I think that has really influenced me now, because I think there's so much I think that is why I've been so committed to education for so long, because when you have the opportunity to have those experiences and travel and meet other people and get an education and learn about things sort of outside of your bubble, you learn that there's just so much more, and that it shifts your worldview about who you are.
One of the things I remember learning very early on at United Way from you, and I don't know if you know this, is you put it a different way, but my father-in-law has an expression that never meant anything to me until I got older and resonated when I started work with United Way. And he says, you only know what you know. And it was sort of always his way of saying, don't fault people for things they didn't know about or didn't know was an option. And then when I learned through your work that, this idea that kids need to be exposed more than the 4 blocks they live in, and they don't even know that these careers are an option.
Yeah.
And this idea of people expanding their world. Yeah. And that expression now is one of my favorites, because it's helped me as a mom, it's helped me as a friend, it's helped me as a boss. Yeah. To sort of realize, like, people only know what they know. So stop, think about, what do they know, what have they been exposed to, and what role can you play in all of that? Yeah. So I love that you lived that experience, and it definitely has had such a clear impact on your life.
It has, and it's really, I think not only influence on my career, but on the way that I raise my own boys. So the opportunity for them to experience the world and see things that are bigger than themselves.
Yeah.
You know, just I need you to see things that are big.
Get out there.
And to meet people that are different than you, and to be exposed to those things. I think it just changes your whole worldview.
So when you're in college, you're thinking you're going for education.
Yeah.
And do you get a degree in education? Did you go that far? Okay.
No, so I ended up getting a degree in community health education. I ended up finding a track where I could do work educating people in the community and doing like prevention and intervention type work with folks. And I was really interested. It was in the 90s when big tobacco settlements were happening. There was a lot of work sort of on population level health and on public health. I was really interested in what was happening in public health and
there was also a lot of AIDS education. I mean, that was really, you know, people attach that to the 80s a lot, but really the education piece, if I'm recalling correctly, didn't really come into play until like the mid to late 90s.
It was one of my first, I actually don't really share this with many people, but it was one, and not because for any reason other than just, you know, it often doesn't come up, but one of my first volunteer experiences in college was I decided to go work for the local HIV and AIDS support organization. I don't remember what it was called. And I decided I wanted to go volunteer, like now. Like I just felt so compelled and so emotionally devastated by what was happening around us that I decided I need to go be part of the cause. And I did nothing but answer the phone and lick envelopes and stuff flyers. And I never really even met many people, but I was there. And I showed up like 3 days a week and went and answered the phone and sort of things. And I remember talking with some of the staff there, and they're sort of like, why are you here? Like what what made you show up here? And I just felt so absolutely compelled that it was not right, that there was not enough support, and I decided to go do it.
It's interesting because I although grew up in New Jersey, which often people don't think of, but I grew up in a pretty small rural part of New Jersey. Yeah. And I graduated with 52 girls at a girls' school. And so when I went off to the city and I went to New York for college, it was a very similar choice. I was like, I want the world to be bigger. I want to know more people. And I signed up to volunteer at a community outreach program in Harlem. And I remember my parents now came out of sort of the 70s New York when like you didn't take the subway. And I'm like, I'm going to take the subway. It's a different city. And it had changed, certainly. But I was Pollyanna. I didn't know any. Right. I just got on the subway and went to 125th Street in Harlem and walked the 2 or 3 blocks to the community. I never thought anything of it and worked in education.
I know. I think about that now so much. I'm like, how in the world did I just decide to just go do all sorts of things? Just travel. You know, I drove everywhere. I've gone a million places and not thought about it. Like, that probably was not always
maybe
the
not
safest
the best idea.
Certain things, but
if you want to expand your horizons, right, you have to sort of take those, I guess, adventures, risks, whatever you want to look at them, and put yourself out there to a certain extent. Yeah. So you start working, you graduate college. Yeah. And what is your first job? Yeah, so my first real job, by that time, we had moved to Illinois. So I was living in Peoria, Illinois, and got a job working at a health department, running a program for the Susan G. Komen Foundation. It was a grant that had been given to the health department, and I was there to do education about breast health education. And so I was brand new out of school. I'm, barely, whatever. Got my first suit. I'm like ready to go. I'm ready to talk to folks about breast health education and educate them about all these things. And I think back on that now, like, how in the world did somebody trust a 23-year-old to talk to them about their, such a critical issue? Right. But I did it, and I loved it, and found out Susan G. Komen was originally from, like, her sister lived in Peoria area, so the Komen, all the foundation, everything they were doing was very big there. Okay. Huge sort of race for the cure, and just sort of all the things that they were doing, so that was my first job out of college. When you think about it, what is a lesson you learned from that first job that you maybe have taken with you for better or for worse?
I was actually thinking about this the other day, and there were a lot of experiences, but I remember one of the leaders of the organization, in the way that he talked to me as a new employee, and it was very dismissive, and it was very very degrading. And I just remember that experience of thinking, I never want to be a part of something where I'm treating people in a way that's degrading or dismissive. I know we all have our flaws, and I certainly have had moments when, whatever, but I will just never forget that. And so while I remember the experience and all the things about that job, I remember being pretty low ranking in the organization and feeling it. And not feeling that I was an active and contributing member.
An important part of the team.
Right.
It's interesting because I ask that question often of people on the podcast, and you hear people either had a really positive experience that became the foundation for how they kind of went through their career, or they had a negative experience that also taught them what they never want to happen in their career. Almost universally.
Really?
Yes. Almost universally, people have some sort of experience on one extreme or the other that kind of is the foundation. And so, I appreciate you sharing that. I think that's important for people to know. You had a lot of interesting jobs.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your journey that brought you to United Way.
Yeah. So when we moved to Pennsylvania in 2003, I was looking for a job in public health because I'd been working for 5 years in public health.
At this point, you have one child, correct?
I had one little boy. He was 4 at the time. And had lived in Illinois, also in Missouri. I was working in rural Missouri in public health there, and moved to Pennsylvania thinking I was going to be working in public health, and was shocked that the public health system here is very different than it is in other parts of the country. There's not a regionalization through public health departments like there are in other parts of the country. And so I had a hard time finding a job, quite frankly. And so I ended up applying for a job. Yeah. So I ended up applying for a job at the Crime Victims Council, and I was there to do outreach and prevention education, and then became a sexual assault counselor. I did basic crisis response, so I could be responsive to homicide or other violent crimes.
Whoa.
I did juvenile offender mediation. I was trained in that.
Do you have an early experience that sort of stuck with you that you want to share? And before we talk about that, because it's a heavy topic, I want to remind you have a little wine here. Please enjoy.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
You're welcome to take a sip before you tell us about Crime Victims Council work with homicides.
It was not the primary part of my job. I was trained in it.
But it is an important thing to talk about, and let me say why I think we want to make sure we're sharing.
Yeah.
There's this whole part of our society and things going on that we want to often turn a blind eye to. And yet there are these amazing people and organizations working on behalf of victims and victims' rights that unfortunately you tend to not know much about unless you have to, which is the worst case scenario. So for people who aren't familiar, talk a little bit about the types of work and the type of person that you're helping with the Crime Victims Council.
Yeah. So again, my primary job was outreach and prevention education.
Sure.
So I did a lot of education programs in schools, and that was actually my
Preventing what? What are we preventing?
Bad relationships, looking for warning signs of abuse in all types of relationships. Being able to help kids understand appropriate boundaries.
Again, you only know what you know.
Only know what you know.
Right.
So have had kids come up to me after a program and disclose things that had occurred to them. Every single person in the office was trained to answer the hotline. And so if the hotline rang, you never knew what was on the other end of it. And Crime Victims Council is one of those organizations, there are so many of them in the Valley, but I think they'll always have a little piece of my heart because I just remember being there one day and the phone rang and there was a woman on the other end who had just discovered that all 4 of her daughters had been abused and was just beside herself. Just what do I do? Where do I go? How do I even start? What do I do?
Incredible. What a devastating realization.
Unbelievable. And they work with, they're a piece of the puzzle. They're working with law enforcement. They're working with working with hospital systems and healthcare. You know, there's so much more that's evolved and changed even since I was there. But, and then I was trained as a rape crisis counselor, so would go to the hospital with victims. You know, you get a call, or you know, it could be a phone call. You know, you're answering the hotline and it's 2:00 in the morning and there's a victim that needs to just talk. And you know, hats off to the people that have continued to do that work for so long.
It's probably really emotionally draining work.
Unbelievable. You could be answering you're on call. Everybody takes a turn on call. And again, my job was outreach and prevention education, but you know, everybody takes a turn being on call. And so it could be 2:00 in the morning and a victim is calling, you know, or survivor's calling, and they want to talk. They just need somebody to talk to about what they're experiencing. Having a flashback, having a hard time sleeping, could be any number of things. Yeah. Or it could be the hospital, and they need you to come and be.
And very intense work, very intense, emotionally draining work. What did you take away from that experience?
Yeah, so what started shifting for me was that I realized that I was there to be a victim advocate, and I still am, I mean, absolutely a victim advocate. But I ended up building a relationship with the local treatment center for juvenile offenders. And I was there to talk to them and build empathy for victims, and to talk to them about good, healthy relationships and what that could look like. And what I was most struck by was how many young men that I was working with who were victims and had acted out because they were victims. And
right.
So
they didn't have the help or the resources, so it turned into some sort of other behavior.
And then just thinking about the systemic issues that so many of these young men were dealing with. And so it became a struggle for me, because I was there as a victim advocate, but the world suddenly became very gray for me. So while it wasn't
as black and white, a victim perpetrator. Yeah.
You know, you're dealing with a kid who has watched, you know, their mom get beat up multiple times, and now, you know, they are acting out and they're doing all kinds of things and creating their own round of victims. And you have, I mean, unbelievable empathy for what, you know, the victims had experienced at their hands. But so many of those kids had been locked up since they were 9. They were, you know, in and out of the system, and they were, you know, they're just.
It's almost like the more you dig deeper, the more you realize that there are just so many layers and complexities to these issues, which ties in a lot to your work now. But I've got to say, at the same time you're doing this, I'm assuming now you have 2 boys. 2 boys. So you're raising 2 sons while you're doing this kind of work. Talk to me, first of all, a little bit about your boys, who are the light of your life.
They are.
Just tell me a little bit about them to whatever extent you're comfortable.
So my oldest, Gavin, is 19, and he is an unbelievably talented actor. Theater, you know, he went to Charter Arts High School since 7th grade, and was in theater, and really fell in love with theater and with acting, and as a performer. And also does his own media stuff.
I know, we need him in here.
I know.
We need him in here, you know. It's an open invitation to have him come.
He has such an eye to him.
Shadow, intern, hang out, whatever.
His eye just constantly blows me away. He's a very compelling kid. And so he's looking at school next year. And so we'll be thinking about what that looks like for him. My youngest guy will be 15. Connor is.
I can't believe he's 15 almost. I know. He's so. Brenna's right behind him, like 6 months. And I feel like we were just talking about them being like little kids, and it does kind of happen overnight.
It's unreal. So, you know, the voice has changed. He's taller. He's different.
They're really, really handsome. And charismatic. Like they both have a magnetism about them,
They do.
And they're just neat boys. So that's exciting. What do you feel as a mom, and especially a mom to boys, what do you feel like has been your best lesson for them, or the thing that you try to make sure you're always kind of sticking true to?
You know, I think probably the best lesson has been to be a noticer. So I've always wanted them to see other people around them. And so whether it's, you know, Gavin was teasing me one time because, there's a car broken down on the side of the road. We're going to help push it to the next thing. And I don't care if I'm in heels and I don't care if I'm in a suit. I'm going to take off the jacket and we're going to help. So you need to notice everyone around you. So you need to hold that door. You need to pay attention to other people. You need to listen and look at the world around you and to be a part of the solution. And so I've tried to instill that in my boys from day one. I love
that. I'm going to borrow that as a phrase because I actually had a conversation this morning driving my kids to school about, we had a situation with basically trying to help someone and the kid was resistant. And I sort of thanked them and I said, I'm really proud of the fact that when somebody's willing to help us in some way, whether it's a ride or whatever, you guys say, thank you, and when can I be ready to go? And I wanted to make sure they knew that I appreciated that they were thinking outside of themselves. But I'm going to use that phraseology because I was trying to figure out how to, teenagers are so notoriously self-centered. It's sort of the nature of the age. And I feel like as a mom, I'm always trying to get them to think bigger than themselves, but I'm going to start calling it that. Be a noticer.
Be a noticer.
I love that. That's key. And then you had a major shift in your life just a couple years ago.
I did.
You met this amazing man.
I did.
And I have to say, as your friend, it was so cool to watch. It was like, it's still sort of like watching a fairy tale unfold.
I know.
So tell me about your amazing husband, Derek.
Yeah. So, wow, yeah. He's, first of all, I just need to say, the man had never been married, no children. And so we come into his life.
Talk about into the frying pan. This guy, it was like, I remember because I was with you for some of the first events that he was like by your side. And, he was like a little bit, big eyes, like just, but so friendly, willing to meet everybody. Like you could see his love for you is like all in.
I know.
Just all in.
It's, it's so funny. The more time that I spent with him, the more that I thought, and I've never had this experience, but the more that I thought, this is what my future looks like. And we're very different people. I'm sort of more big picture. He's very detail-oriented person, which, has its moments with us because, and I have to, he's a code master. He's a SQL guy. He's an IT person. So he can look at a whole string of numbers and say, that one's wrong. Where I'm sort of like, I don't care. Like, can we look at the whole piece? Can we look at the whole page together? And in I would say in almost every circumstance, we complement each other in a wonderful way. There are moments though where it's sort of like, can we look at the big picture? And he's like, how about the details?
Is there any piece of that you find interesting that you were married before and you have 2 kids? And he came in and he was a bachelor. And doesn't have children. So just give me like that's a whole other thing.
Totally.
Really.
Completely and totally.
Give me the kudos. Like where is he? And give me the laugh. Where is he? What are we working on?
It's gonna kill me. He is one of the most decent people I've ever met. He's just he's very. We connect well on a practical level. We're both very practical people.
Yeah, my husband and I too. It's funny, so we're really different also, but we are both very practical. We're big like, forget the gifts, let's take the trip. Let's do this.
Sort of always. Like, what am I doing for you for Valentine's Day? I'm like, you're sending me flowers. And like, there's no, he's like, I love this. I never have to guess what I'm supposed to do.
Know where you stand.
I don't play games. He doesn't play games. Like, let's just cut it out. Let's just get right to it.
Love that.
The challenges have been, when you have a baby, you get the chance to fall in love with them, and they're cute, and you fall in love with all the pieces, right? When you have a 15-year-old teenager looking at you with the beginning of a mustache, and they're like taking your stuff, it's a different world, and you don't have that
experience.
Are
you parent? Are you friend?
Especially if you've never been a parent.
I think step parents are angels on earth.
Oh my gosh.
And I have 2 amazing step parents, and the older I get and the longer I'm a parent, the more often I say to my step parents, like, how'd you do it?
I know.
Really, they really to me are angels on earth. I think it's one of the hardest jobs someone can walk into, and I think it's even harder if you haven't been a parent.
That's right.
Yeah.
And again, the big tent philosophy. My ex-husband and I were childhood sweethearts. We met when I was 15. We stood by each other for 25 years, and had a lot of ups and downs and made a mutual decision. He remarried, and although it has not been, always an easy experience, you have to have a big tent philosophy. And so he married a woman who was a stepmother to my boys. And I have to care about her, and I have to want her to be well, and for her to be happy, and for her to, and it's not been an easy experience for anybody. But when I think about, her coming into my boy's life and my husband coming into my boy's life, you can choose to say the circle's just expanded. And so
it's such the better choice.
It is the better choice.
Having been both of us been kids in that circumstance.
Yes.
I feel like my life is so enhanced by the fact that my parents did that too.
Yes.
And doesn't mean it was always easy, and doesn't mean you always agreed, but that big picture, take the high road thing, it does matter to the kid. So I think it's so admirable. I really give you guys a lot of credit.
Yeah.
And so I want to mention that Derek, besides being this awesome, lovable, he's kind of always got this like really big smile on his face, and he's really happy to see everyone. I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's me, but I like to think so, because I'm like, oh, he makes you, he just does. He makes people happy when you meet him. But he also has like totally enriched your life in other ways.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, you've got 4 dogs, right? 4?
5.
5, you're nuts. You've got the 30-something chickens.
Well,
you moved.
Yeah.
So you're like pretending to be a farmer now.
With 4 ducks.
The ducks.
Again,
you're traveling a lot more than you ever did. You're taking time for each other, right? You're trying to make.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's just been. I'm telling you, it's like
we bought
watching
a motorcycle.
You just bought a boat. I mean, I'm not even joking. It feels like you're watching a fairy tale unfold, and I'm so happy for you. And I feel like it can be so inspiring for women who find themselves in a situation that, for whatever reason, whether it's mutual or not, that they don't want to be in. What's your advice for rewriting your history, or inking a new history? Like, what's your advice to women out there, or anybody, I guess, out there that needs a change or wants to make? Like, I just feel like you're such an inspiration for happiness, that it exists, it's possible.
It's a great book called A Million Miles in 1,000 Years by Don Miller. And it was a great book for me that I often refer back to, which is what I learned while editing the story of my life. So if you think of your life as a story, and if you're not happy with the storyline, you need to edit it and you need to change it. And I waited a long time to edit the storyline. And lost my stepfather about 3 years ago, very unexpectedly. He's age 60. And he always wanted to do the vacations, and he wanted to take the time off, and he wanted to do these things, and he didn't. And then he was gone. And I realized through going through a divorce and having to kind of recalibrate I had one vision for what my life was going to be like, and then recalibrating that. And then losing someone who was so important to me, a real father to me, and recalibrating after that, that I had to make some choices that it's just, you can't wait. We don't have time to wait.
Right.
So take the vacation.
Yeah. Right.
Eat the dessert. You take the vacation. Have the fun.
You're my second guest today to tell me to eat the dessert. Now listen, I like the wine, the cheese, the pickles, but once in a while.
Don't eat too much dessert. I mean, don't eat too much dessert.
But you're right. But this carpe diem sort of seize the day mentality, I think, is so important, and something we often forget, and we worry about all the reasons not to and not the reasons to. I want to do 2 things before our time here ends, which is, first, just tell me briefly about your work with United Way. I'm so honored and proud to be on the board of United Way at the Greater Lehigh Valley, and to do a lot of the video work and community work, and just alongside you, and tell the story of what you and your amazing team do every day. So if you can tell me in a nutshell, what does United Way do for our community, and how are you guys really impacting and influencing the way our community is being shaped?
Yeah. So we exist to improve lives in community conditions. And so we assess those conditions, we raise and invest money, we mobilize people to action, and we measure results. That's what we do. We have 3 bold impact goals. Our focus in education, which is the largest portion of our work. So improving grade level reading and leading huge community initiatives around that. improving in healthy aging, improving the quality of life for seniors, not only because it's important economically, but it's important morally as well, making sure that our seniors are not only have the services that they need to stay healthy in their homes, but also thinking about reducing social isolation, which is really crippling.
Such a major issue for seniors, yeah.
And then addressing food access and food insecurity. A lot of people, food insecurity is a theme that runs through many social issues. And so tackling that at a systemic level with some of our key partners has been really critical. So what United Way does is, what I've been talking about, improve lives and community conditions. We impact about 60,000 people a year in 3 counties, Lehigh, Northampton, and Carbon counties. And it's incredible. I've been there almost 13 years, and every single day I am reminded that I work for the community. And so I put that on as my badge every day and renew my commitment to doing the work that's necessary.
And the thing for me that always resonates is this concept that, one, I love that you guys are based in measurable data.
Yeah.
So that matters to me, and I think it should matter to the community. So I put that out there. These are not just random decisions. They're data-based. And the second is this idea of rallying the troops around an issue. It's often referred to as collective impact. And so that for me has been really important, and I just think people need to know that it's not just handing out money. It's really getting the right people aligned on the same issues to make a difference. So we love that.
We love that too.
Yeah.
It's good work.
It's the best United Way of the Greater Lehigh Valley. If people don't know, it's a good organization to be part of and give to.
We're one of the top of the network, and it's something we're proud of.
And people should know that in the Lehigh Valley. This our United Way, we need to have pride around the fact that we're being recognized by United Way worldwide for being a leader in a lot of areas, education work and fundraising work, and that's just cool. So thank you for helping lead that effort with your team.
Thanks for serving on our board. You are just, all United Way all the time.
I love it.
Well,
listen, I believe in it. But before I let you go, I want to ask you a few quick questions. You ready?
Ready.
Right. If you were not doing what you do now, what would be a totally different career that you would take?
I own my own coffee shop.
Really?
Yeah.
Does Robin from Sagra know that? Sagra Beans? I mean, there's probably an opportunity for a little side gig. I'll get you in there for some roasting. How about it?
I love the, I just love, whether it's coffee shop or whatever, I love the opportunity to connect with folks.
People and the community.
The chance to sit around and, let's have a cup of coffie and dialogue with folks.
We should have a coffee shop.
I love that.
We have a fun coffee shop.
Yes.
All right. If you were to have a last meal, what would it be? What plate of food is most important to you?
A good steak.
A good steak.
Yeah.
Any sides?
Simple. Asparagus.
Okay.
I love asparagus.
Okay.
Yeah.
From
my garden.
Where's a place that you have never been that you would like to go? What's on your bucket list?
Oh, I want to go to Iceland and stay, and they have these little pods that you can sleep under the northern lights. And so
you can go to the hot springs.
That's where I'm going.
I know I have a few friends that have done it recently. They say it's great.
Yeah, that's
all right,
on my
so
list.
That's on your list.
Yeah.
If you were able to have dinner with anyone, past, present, living, gone, who would that be? Who would you invite to dinner? And you could pick a couple people if you need to.
So I've been doing a genealogy project with my grandmother for the last 2 years in my spare time.
Yeah.
3 years in
my
spare
husband's
time.
big into this. We have lots of charts.
We have had I've been actually helping write a book with her. So I've been telling her stories and matching up her pictures.
Do you get the alerts like we found this document, it might be a relative?
Yes.
Yeah, so does Joe.
Yeah.
It's really exciting.
It's
kind of cool to see the stuff you can find.
So I would choose my grandmother's grandmother. She has a story to tell, and we haven't been able to uncover all of it, but we're hot on her trail. And she died when I was in high school. My grandmother's grandmother. Can you imagine? She was 92. And the more that I've learned about her, I would love to have dinner with her and just learn.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What is one thing you want people to know about you that they don't know or you haven't shared today?
Gosh, I'm an open book, so a lot of people know a lot of things about me. You know, the mantra that I always come back to when things are tough, and they are sometimes in the work and in life, is to do your work with integrity, and the rest will just fall into place.
I think that is a great message for us to end on,
Yeah.
Marci Ronald-Lesko. So thank you so much for being here, and thank you for all that you and the team at United Way continue to do for our community.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you all for listening. This is Unscripted with Russo.